All right, family. Black Power. Black Power is the truth hour with General Sarasu said he kick back. Get your mind ready for some information that's guaranteed to be heavy. That's right, family. We jumped in. Okay, is we got a heavy one today. We're gonna be talking about is Prophet Noah the grandfather of ancient Egypt. We're gonna most definitely be jumping off into that. Let me get the let me get my background together right quick. We're gonna be dropping that one next. I was gonna jump off. There we go. I don't know who we already know what this gonna turn out to be, but we gonna jump right off into it because a lot of people believe this. You see, and so we got the deal. Is it true? We're gonna get down to the bottom of it. Before we get started, I want to make sure you get over to my Patreon, General SETI. Over 500 exclusive live streams. We got nothing but fire over there. The link is at the top of the chat. KingSeti.com, online marketplace, official General SETI products, off the chain t-shirts, hoodies, African Kemetic jewelry, DVDs. You can also become a member of my YouTube page, General SETI, Sarasu SETI. Get access to exclusive material, and please give the video a thumbs up, like it because you love it. Share it with your family and friends. Comment, just don't say nothing stupid because you gon' get banned. You feel what I'm saying? Here we go, family. And people got to understand this. People don't, when you fall into this concept, this is what you believe. This is what you believe. And I don't believe a lot of people understand, based on the genealogy of the Bible, that Noah is the supposed grandfather of ancient Egypt. Now, if this is not the biggest crap I have ever heard in my life, and it is, I don't care what and it is. You see, because ancient Egypt, not only when you deal with, pre-dynastic Egypt, you see, they got kings before Egypt. You talking about Egypt is a particular place and time, but you got pre-dynastic Egypt. You got kings with the same crowns on their head in Sudan, almost 800 years before the first pharaoh ever of Egypt. And when you talk about Egypt, you got to talk about the earlier kings didn't even rule in the north. They ruled in the south. And so what people know of today, Egypt, Memphis, and this is what people know, but they don't know about the earlier cities that before they even get down into Memphis. And so just the dynastic period don't mean nothing. You got to deal with the pre-dynastic period. Then you got to go up further where they have found earlier traditions with the crown. You got Kustul in Sudan, where the evidence is in Chicago at this Oriental Museum, Oriental Institute in Chicago, where before they put the dam in there, the Aswan Dam, they surveyed all the temples and all the burials, and they found evidence that what they call the pharaonic institution was already in place up to 800 years before Nama, the first king of Egypt, already in play. So you can't even just start there. So when you talk about Noah being the grandfather of ancient Egypt, and again, I got some more dates for y'all. Now I'm gonna work these dates so that y'all understand this. Now, a lot of people, you can go right on and you go right on the internet for yourself, and you can look up the Masoretic chronology, and this is the chronology that the rabbis, that the Bible used. So don't get mad. Don't say nobody made it up. You see where they talk about the earth being created 4004. Wow. I would like to know who the hell was floating out in the universe counting 4,000. That's a calendar. You just got, so the calendar had to be here before the earth was here. How you going, if you count day one, then that means then you had to have the calendar here before the earth was here, in order to start counting. And so all these, and they say you know, Noah was the birth of Noah was 1,056 years after creation. You see, his birth, Noah's birth, was 1,056 years after creation. Creation is 4,004. So, if you want to know today's dating system, if you want to know what date Noah was born, all you had to do was take 1,056 and subtract it from 4,004, and you will get 2,948 BC. Now we got to do better than this, family. It is not possible for Noah to be the birth or the grandfather of ancient Egypt at no 2,948 BC. Now, I could tell you straight up that no no ancient Egyptian chronology ever mentions a Noah. Now, if that was really their granddaddy, do you think that they will forget this man? You see, if Ham it was really the father of ancient Egypt, do you think that they could forget their own father? How is this possible? And how could the father, which is a goat herder, they in Noah, a goat herder, the Israelite goat herders birth civilization, builders of civilizations, and not build no civilization of their own. The Israelites, the Shemitic people in the Bible never built a civilization of their own. Let's just deal with that. Can we deal with that? Can we deal with that, family? To all the biblical flunkies out there that just, got it. Even when you talk about Israel, they took over Canaan. They didn't go in there with their own hands. They ain't going there with their own hands and build nothing. They took. And the Bible said they took, lived in their houses, wore their clothes, kept their animals. You see what I'm saying? Kept their children and enslaved them, kept the women if they was virgins. If they wasn't virgins, then they got rid of them too. You understand? So that's what they did. So, but they never built a civilization of their own. So, this is but yet and still you birth builders of civilizations. I don't understand that. I mean, how could you birth energy like that and don't keep none for yourself and use it for yourself? You see, why are you always build? You say you built temples for the Egyptians. They didn't need y'all to build no temple. They didn't. They didn't need y'all to build no temple. They had enough masons, and majority of the temples in Egypt made out of stone. They're not made out of no mud and no straw. So y'all can stop that. Quit lying. I know y'all been Disney. Y'all watch Disney. What's that? The Prince and the Prince of Egypt, and and they put all them cartoons together, and then y'all watch the Ten Commandments on Thanksgiving. What do it come on? Easter. And y'all watch the Yul Brynner and Charleston Heston, and they're gonna bring that on. I think they made it in the early 1900s, but yet and still, it's 100 years old, and people still watching it and crying and snotting, and when it come on, and and people and they see Moses split the Red Sea and all of that, and y'all say the power of God. The power of God. Y'all believe any damn thing. They got all type of technology today. But the last movie out about Moses, it flopped. They didn't even want to see it because the truth didn't really the truth have really, hit people hard today. And a lot of they're not saying it out loud. They just don't support the movies dealing with that biblical stuff no more. They don't even support it no more. They ain't even going to church no more, because it didn't hurt them so bad that they didn't live that lie, all these years, and now the truth is coming out. But hold on, family. Yeah. So when we look at this chronology, and a lot of people don't know, and that you talking about that the Israelites supposedly spent 430 years in Egypt. You see, they spent 430 years in Egypt. And so a lot of people don't want to talk about, that's a lot of years for you to spend somewhere and act like you didn't take nothing, that you didn't borrow nothing. And when you ask them about what did they take out of Africa, then they give you some little minuscule, well, we might have, I mean, come on, 430 years. And do y'all know, and see, this is the thing that they don't talk about. We had to get on them. But we dealing with, the fact that we already know that Noah is not the grandfather of ancient Egypt. We know that. You see? We know that. We didn't make sense of it. But we don't understand the ramifications. And we think it's just small because, but you got the majority of the world following three of these religions that's basically plagiarization of African scriptures. You see, and at the same time, they living off of the wisdom of our ancestors. Then they carving on the walls, they carving the statues up, at the same time to try to do anything to hide the fact that it's African. If it wasn't African, Egypt, they would venerate Egypt over Greece and Rome. If they really thought that that was theirs, they would have venerated Egypt over Greece and Rome. Who wouldn't have done that? But the mummy, the mummy coming up out the tomb. If they thought that was their ancestors, why would they demonize the mummy? The mummy coming up out the tomb. You see, coming up out the tomb like some demonic entity. They don't do the Greek. They don't do the Greeks like that. They don't do the Romans like that. No, they don't do that. So that in itself show you that it don't belong to them. That's just common sense. If it belonged to them, if they felt them statues over there look like them, man, they would glorify them statues. Them statues would be in every museum. They'll be look at the greatness of our people. You think they wouldn't do it? Of course they would. Of course they would do that. So, but that's not what they're doing. On one end, they're saying, "Oh, but it's replicas. It's not what's already over there. It's the replica, and the replica never looked like what the people who was looking directly at the individuals." You see what I'm saying? If they looking directly at and carve the individual, and then you come with all your science and you create something different than what a sculptor. And I show in one of my videos, I show that a master painter, a master drawer, one who can really draw, you see, a artist, man, some of them can draw. The only thing that might be closer to an artist, a good artist that can sit down and draw, is a photo. So I show all these pictures of artists all over the planet when they draw somebody and how close it was that, and they was looking directly at them. You see? So when you talking about a master artist, a sculptor who, and how they, and even to this day, you see, and they looking directly at them, they not gonna make no mistake and draw something totally opposite of what they looking at, because that's how they get their esteem. The closer they get to how the individual really look, that's how they get, that's how they get their rank and file. That's how people say, man, that artist right there, he gonna draw you perfect. And so that's gonna carry him all over the world, carry her all over the world. They not gonna draw something totally opposite of what the person looked like. And they sitting right there looking directly at them. That just don't make sense. So when you look at, I see replicas. of all, and you can go online, and I did that, and you see replicas of the Greeks, and they took Alexander, they took Julius Caesar, they took all the Roman uh Caesars, and they replicated them, and it always looked exactly like the statue. They don't try to change it. It looked exactly like the statue. The Romans and the Greek. Only Egypt, where it could look like one thing, and then when the replica get back, it's something totally different. I say, what kind of shit is this? Only civilization out of all the civilizations where they do that. You look at King Tut, how King Tut looked. And then you look how they brought this air replica and say, this is how, based on the scan and all of this is what he looked like. He don't look like all the other statues that almost, it looked like they was so, they looked like they've been rolled off a assembly line. They were so exact. All his statues look exactly the same, meaning that the masters, that's how he looked. But here it is, all these master sculptors looking at this boy, carve this boy, draw this boy, and here it is, everybody was wrong. Why would they? I mean, if I pay you to draw me, and you come back with something that looked totally unlike what I look like, you're not getting paid. You're not getting paid. Nobody gonna pay you to bring them a drawing that don't look like them. Okay? That's not gonna happen. You're not gonna get paid. So how is it that the replica that they say they didn't put this boy together on some CAT scan and say this is how he looked, and you go back and look at all the ancient sculptors and sculptures of how they created him, and it don't look nothing like that. You see, it ain't no way he gonna get paid. Man, they probably hang that man. You know what I'm saying? To bring him, and he looked like this, and you bring a statues back that look like, man, nobody gonna go for that. So that's simpleton thinking to think somebody would do in any era. You know what I'm saying? In any era. But this is what we up against today, and knocking noses. And it's crazy because I just couldn't believe it. It's like every statue. I couldn't believe it. I mean, and I've been studying it for so long, and it's just like every statue, the nose and the lips is missing. You go into Greece, you go into Rome, their statues is not tore up like that. Okay, and they did more warring than anybody. They did way more warring than the Romans. All they did from the time they came into creation, that's all they ever did was war. That's that's all they did. The Greeks, the same way, war. So if anything, all they stuff should have been tore up. How is it that they statues are still, and yeah, they got some broke up statues, but it not deliberately. If it's if it fall over and the arm come off, but a lot of them still had their faces, and you could tell somebody literally went up to the African statues and just totally just attacked the statue, just beat it up, just knocked the eyes, the nose, the lip, everything. And the fact that they would get up on the Sphinx is just a proof of that it wasn't no coincidence. Now, if it looked like them, they would have glorified it. Why would they have? I mean, that's what they've been trying to. They wouldn't even have to recreate nothing. You see, they wouldn't have to come in and recreate no replicas because they would have the original. That's what they always wanted. So they know that that's not them. They know that. I don't care what nobody. They know that's not them. Okay, and so the fact that they tried to fool the world into saying that this is not African. This is something. This, that, and the third. And the reality, when they finally got a chance to get in there, Napoleon, the British, and and Napoleon looked up at the speech. They say he was in shock. It hurt. He was in shock of what he saw. You know, he could not accept it. And many of his you know, his servants, they wanted his colleagues that went in there with him, they recorded it. They say this is African. I mean, these are supposed to be these are supposed to be PhD scientists. This is not no average person that's making a comment. These is the top scientists of the day. So that's weight. And it don't take much to say, oh, that's not me. You know, I mean, it don't take no damn scientist it just take a person with two eyeballs, you see, and truth in their heart. It don't take all that to make a declaration of truth when you looking at something. Well, it ain't me, you know. You know what I'm saying? And it looked like the same people we got on the plantation. That's what it looked like, and that's what that's what is a lot of his colleagues. They say, well, we reading the Bible. When we get here, we realize this is an African civilization. That's what they said. You know, the majority of them said it. It wasn't just a few. The majority of them said it. Not just a few, the majority. You know, and not only did they said it over, you can go from the Greeks up to Count Volney, and the Greeks was BC. You see, you're talking about BC all the way up into 1900. So you're talking about over a 2,000-year period where people saw the same thing consistently and unanimously. And then in the 1900s, you get this so-called Eurocentric model, you see, where now they trying to make it white after 2,000 years of people saying that these is African people, these black people. And now we fumbling because, you understand what I'm saying? We believe we got more knowledge today than in the past. You see, that's what we believe. We do believe that, even though with all the knowledge we possess, we still trying to figure out how they did this. You know what I'm saying? And we still trying to figure out how they did this. But when you look even at Joseph, they say according to the Masoretic chronology, Joseph was sold into Egypt in 1898. 1898, that would have been the Middle Kingdom. They say that the Pharaoh that could have been, based on the chronology, could have been Amenemhat the third, and they destroyed almost every statue he ever had. Matter of fact, let me see if I could put Amenemhat up there. They destroyed every statue that man ever had. Every statue that they could find of Amenemhat, they violently attacked that statue to get it, you know what I'm saying, because it revealed too much. Here you go, right here. That's Amenemhat. So based on the chat GTP, they saying that Amenemhat could have been the Pharaoh at the time of Joseph. Now, we know it ain't no Joseph, but based on the chronology, this would have been the king that would have been sitting up. The man with all these dreadlocks, you see, all these dreadlocks. So, they went, every statue of this man has been defaced. It's not funny, but I'm laughing in pain, just to say, of people that would actually believe that this looked like them. Do you think they would destroy it? That would they couldn't have held back putting these statues in if it had a European nose, a new European feature, even Arab. They know these ain't no Arab. They know that the culture, you cannot find no Arab with no dreadlocks. And they know that. They know that. You can't find where you gonna find an Arab with some dreadlocks? Okay, this is going on right now. This is going on right now. It never stopped with black people. You see, And so, you know, so we already know we got to come about it. And so there is some information that could be used, but you most definitely have to have it, you know, you got to understand this chronology. If you it's no need to even read the Bible unless you understand first and foremost the chronology from beginning to end and the individuals in the book. You have to understand who they are before you even start reading. So when you do start reading, you got the chronology, you got an understanding of who they are, and you got a comparative chronology of, you know, what we know of. And even ancient Egypt's chronology is up for dispute. Okay. You know, ancient Egypt is far older than what people is given credit. So understand that. Even Herodotus said that the dynastic period was over 10,000 years old. That's what he said. That's what he got from the Egyptians. They told him that the Egyptian dynastic period was over 10,000 years old. Okay? Not starting at 3,000. You see? Which is, you know, and when you look at the megalithic structures that's in Egypt, that make more sense than 3,000. You can't have the first king sitting on the throne at 3,200 BC and you building megalithic pyramids 300 years later. Come on. Let's do, if we're gonna do this, we got to, you know, act like we got some common sense. If we ain't gonna act like we got common, we ain't gonna never get nowhere. Ain't no way in 300 years you gonna go from a mud masturbah to a three, you know, a megalithic 50-story skyscraper, you know, with over 2 million stones on this pyramid, and the average stone weigh 2 tons, 5 tons. The heaviest stones weigh almost 100 tons. And you gonna come up with that kind of knowledge in 300 years? Man, let's stop this. This is mad. That's why they say it come from Earth. It come from outer space. You can't create no knowledge that great in 100 years. The time frame is not relevant. So when Herodotus said Egypt was 10,000 years old, that's more in alignment, and it could be older than that. You see, it could be older than that, but understand, you know, they taking in consideration the dynastic period. They taking into consideration the kingship of Nubia. You know, 800 years before Egypt, they had already come into the pharaonic. The white crown was already being worn in Sudan and Kustur. They got the documentation. So the 10,000 BC is more relevant. You see? Hold on, where we at? Yeah. Okay. General Seti at yahoo.com, family. Yeah. General Seti at yahoo.com. So, in matter of fact, I'm going to get on that 10,000 BC. You see, I'm going to get on that 10,000 BC. I'm going to bring y'all that document to show y'all that they know better than me. But see, the only thing is they still trying to align Egypt with the Bible. That's really what they doing. You see, that's exactly what they doing, even though it's still out of context. They keep it just enough where you could say, oh, well, it might be off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But it still ain't gonna be off that much. You see, it's still not gonna be off that much. So even the chronology of ancient Egypt is garbage. You see, just to be real with you, it ain't no 3,000, no 3,200. It's far older than that. It's far older than that. But anyway, family, stay with me. We still got, we got 2, 3 fire presentations coming up right after this. Don't you go nowhere. This is General Sabra Soon said it. Get over to Patreon, immediately support the general. Got that file over there. Arm yourself with knowledge. Bang on the Wicked Beast Daily. Liberation through African education and confrontation. Boom. Black power.